Hey guys, Zombiever slash Mugen here. I don't even know anymore. I just wanted to do a quick video guide on the Inarius build that I put together and put up on Diablofans and did some demo videos of. This is my first guide, so hopefully I'll do okay. Don't be too harsh. I'm doing my best. Hopefully I won't go too long. So basically what this build is, it's using 6-piece Inarius. Basically everything is based around some various melee stuff, essentially. So basically this is giving us a lot of mitigation, it's giving us a lot of damage. The thing I like about Inarius is the fact that you can use it with pretty much anything. Obviously it does have a melee dependency, but it gives you the freedom to basically mess around with whatever you want. You know, that's kind of what prompted this build in the first place. Was the idea that Inarius is basically letting you just kind of mess with whatever, and it's just boosting that damage. Which I think is a really neat idea. I don't think there's anything else quite like that in D3, other than Legacy and Nightmare. So I feel like Inarius is a bit almost like a set version of Legacy of Nightmares without the ancient dependency, but you have to be in melee range. That's basically it. I think it's a neat set. I wanted to make something work, so we're using Inarius. It was that combined with the fact that the first Primal Ancient I got on my Necromancer was an Iron Rose, and I just kind of got it and thought, I wonder what we can do with this. Let's see what we can make work with this. So I messed around with it for a while, and I used, again, I had it before I had pretty much anything. I didn't have a full set of anything when I first got this. So I was like, well, that's kind of a neat idea. Let's kind of mess around with that. And I just kind of stuck with it. One thing I do want to get out of the way about this, though, is because I've answered a few questions on Reddit and elsewhere about this, is that don't get too hung up on the idea that this is the primary source of damage here. It's not. Okay, I want to make sure that that's completely clear. This is not the biggest hitting. This is not the primary source of damage in this setup. It's just part of your overall DPS that honestly is primarily for the purposes of clearing trash. Okay, this combined with Pain Enhancer, combined with your Bone Storm, is what's giving you trash killing. And when you kill trash, then you're using Corpse Lance to hit the biggest baddie in the group. That's where your biggest damage is coming from. This is an added bonus that helps you kill trash quickly. I don't want to undersell the damage, because I'm not going to say that it's insignificant, but it's the reason I'm stressing this is because some people I've seen people say things about like, oh, well, why aren't you doing more to buff Death Nova damage, like with Bloodtide Blade or Scythe of the Cycle or whatever. And the point that you're missing if you're asking that is that it's not as big a source of damage as you think it is. It's part of it. It is part of your damage, but it's not your primary source of damage. It's to clear trash. This, with Pain Enhancer, with Bone Storm, kills trash pretty darn quick on a GR 80. And when you kill trash, then you're just mashing the crap out of Corpse Lance. So, 6-piece Inarius, Dainty's Bindings, we're using Dizzying Curse on Decrepify. Because we're not actually using the first part of Tragul's to use Grim Scythe, we have to manually cast Decrepify. One note about this, because I've also been asked this, is that the second part of this description is it's entirely separate from the first part, where it talks about, because people have asked, well, why aren't you using Grim Scythe? The part about Grim Scythe on this effect, we don't care about. Okay, that's why we're not using Grim Scythe. We don't care about the fact that Cursed Scythe now, and the Grim Scythe rune now applies curses with 100% chance. What we care about is the second part of that, which does not require Cursed Scythe to get. You do not have to use Cursed Scythe in order to get this damage bonus. The only requirement for that is that they be cursed. Full stop. That's it. They have to be cursed. As long as they're cursed, getting the damage bonus. And because we want to use Iron Rose, we have to use Siphon Blood. And because we have to use Siphon Blood, and we're not getting curses through this, we have to manually cast Decrepify. So it's on our bar, and I think most people have it on their bar even with Curse Scythe. I don't know. I think a lot of people do, just to get the rune out of it. So six piece Inarius, Trags equipped, Iron Rose equipped. All that stuff is required. Crispins is required. Traveler's Pledge or Traveler's Walk is optional. We'll get back to that in a minute. You can do a different version of this that's a little bit different, but it's easy. This is easier to do. Traveler's Walk in these 2 slots. A lot of builds that you'll see using Inarius, you will see with Ancient Parthian Defenders. I don't use them simply because I don't think the mitigation is significant enough to warrant the reduction in clear speed that you're losing out on by not using Nemesis Bracers. I could talk at length about why I think that's the case, but I don't want this video to be too long. But basically, unless you are dying really bad, you shouldn't be using, or I'm going to say dying period, you shouldn't be using Ancient Parthian Defenders. And if you're dying, unless you're using Ancient Parthian Defenders, you should probably be dropping your GR anyway. Just for efficiency's sake. Unless you're just doing it purely to push as high as you can go. And to give a little just sort of insight into my outlook on this, my idea of GR quote pushing is not the same as most people's. My idea of pushing isn't how high of a GR can I do within the time limit. Period. That's not my view on it. I don't have any desire to do a 92 in 14 minutes and 58 seconds. My idea of pushing is how high of a GR can I do in about 5 minutes. Anything that gets significantly longer than that, when you're getting like 10-ish minutes long, that becomes so completely unfun for me. I don't have any desire to do that. The highest I've gone with this is 83, and I did it in 7 minutes and 47 seconds. Obviously, if I'm clearing that in less than 8 minutes, clearly I could go higher with it if I wanted to, but it's getting to the point where if I go higher, it's going to be taking longer than I want it to take in order for it to be fun. That's not to say that you couldn't go higher with this. I'm saying the reason I don't is because I don't care. I want the game to be fun while I'm playing it, and it's fun so long as I'm clearing that rift in about 5 minutes. And so far, this is doing that just fine for me. Like 5 to 6 minutes on GR80s. It was faster before the hotfix to Inarius. It's slowed down a little bit now, but it's still totally viable in that range. So this is basically your gear: six-piece Inarius, Trags, Iron Rose, Nemesis, either Traveler's Walk or Kalan, and Convention of Elements, which we'll get back to in a minute. Dainty's Binding is required in your belt slot. This is a huge source of damage mitigation. And it's why we have to use Decrepify. Rune on Siphon Blood can be pretty much whatever you want. I need to fix something here real quick. The rune on it can be pretty much whatever you want. I prefer Bloodsucker. Basically, your only real options here, for the most part, are either Power Shift or Bloodsucker or Drain Life in an alternate setup. For the Traveler's Walk set, you're going to either do Power Shift or Bloodsucker. Power Shift gives you a small amount of additional damage on a single target. That's literally the only thing it's bringing you. That 100% damage buff that you're getting it's only going to Siphon Blood. It's not like it's giving you 100% to everything. That would be completely stupid if it did that. It doesn't. The only thing it's doing is buffing your Siphon Blood damage, which is a very insignificant part of our overall damage. So a little bit, slightly more single target damage, or Bloodsucker. And Bloodsucker gives you the utility of literally just letting you stand there and channel while health globes come running at your face. That's basically what this does. And that is way more handy than you might think it is. Because you can sit there and just, as globes are spawning, just boop, 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 boop. You're just getting more and more healing by doing that. It's really handy. The extra damage you're getting on a single target from Power Shift, I don't think is anywhere near worth the utility that you're getting from Bloodsucker. Dizzying Curse is what I'm using here to get a little bit of extra stun. It can be kind of whatever you want, but this is the one that I prefer. Stuns are important for this build, but we'll get back to that in a second. Potency on Blood Rush. This is giving us more armor. That's an obvious one. This is, I'm going to say, required. Aura Frailty. Okay, so this is what I'm using in place of Land of the Dead. You could use Land of the Dead in place of this, in which case you change a few things around. I don't use Land of the Dead because I don't like Land of the Dead. I don't like super long cooldown skills. I don't like having my damage be completely lopsided where it's really good for a small amount of time and then shit the rest of the time. I don't like having to only run from elite to elite or else feel like I'm completely wasting my time. I don't like having to go super far out of my way in order to mitigate the fact that it's a long cooldown. And unless I go way out of my way to do CDR on rings and shoulders and a diamond in the helmet, do all this stuff and passives, unless I do that, it's going to be this super long cooldown. I don't like having to do all that work, and I don't like having lopsided damage, and I don't like only being able to run from elite to elite. All of those are things that are happening with Land of the Dead, and it's the reason that I don't use it. That's not to say that it's not strong, because it is strong. Plenty of builds use it, and I don't fault them for doing it. I'm just telling you why I don't use it and why I don't like using it. Especially when you're talking about, again, I'm looking at clearing rifts in like 5 to 6 minutes. So you're getting to use this 2, maybe 3 times, unless you get like a channeling pylon or something. You're using this 2 or 3 times in the whole rift. I have no desire to use this in this build at all. I don't use it. So, but if you were going to use something instead of this, that's what you would probably use. Our frailty is really good. The 15% kill, that really adds up over the course of the whole rift. It really cuts down your clear speed. I really like that, number one. Number two is that the bonus that you're getting from Tragols, I like that with this, I'm getting that no matter what, purely by Joe Schmo Zombie walking up within range. I don't even have to cast Decrepify to get that. Granted, I'm going to be doing this fairly frequently, but this gives me the benefit of, even if I don't, literally all they have to do is walk up near me and I'm getting 200% damage bonus on it. So that, combined with the increased clear speed from enemies just dying when they hit 15% health, is pretty handy, in my opinion. But if any one skill is optional in the build, it would be this one. And if you were to do something else, it would probably be Land of the Dead. But I've explained why I'm not using that. Bone armor, obviously, with Inarius, this is absolutely essential for everything. We can't do anything without bone armor. You have to have that in here. Dislocation is the one I use because, again, stuns are important for this build. And again, we'll get back to that. Corpse Lance, I'm using Visceral Impact, not Brittle Touch. Again, because it's stuns, and stuns are important. I can't use Brittle Touch because I'm not using Land of the Dead. With Land of the Dead, you're using Frozen Lands to get freeze on enemies, in which case stun does nothing for you. If you're not using Land of the Dead, stuns are super important because this is just another form of getting that CC off. The reason that is so important is because of Chrisbins. Chrisbins gives you up to 100% increased damage against slowed enemies, which we're getting from Bane of the Trapped, or triple that against other forms of control impairing effect. Other forms being things like freeze, stun, fear, charm, and I'm probably leaving something out, but those are kind of the main ones. So basically, Decrepify Bone Armor, and Corpse Lance are all giving us stuns. And so long as they're stunned, we're getting triple our Charisma's bonus. And that's a huge amount of damage. So that's the runes that I use. That's the reason that I use them. Basically, you want stuns, essentially. Passives, I'm using Overwhelming Essence. We're using Raylenia's Shadow Hook in the cube. So that's just a straight damage increase, because for every point of max essence that we have, it's giving us 0.5% more damage. So at 330 max essence, you're looking at 165% damage boost. It's not quite 160. My understanding, it's not quite 165% because it's apparently slightly reduced across multiple sources of max essence, but it's still, I'm going to say 100 and, I don't know, 55%, I don't know, whatever. It's big. So this is a nice buff to your damage. Standalone, huge shorts of mitigation. This is a no-brainer. Gotta have that on here. It just doubles your armor for doing absolutely nothing. Final Service. Again, I would say really obvious, although I see plenty of builds that don't use this, and I'm not entirely sure why. This saves my ass plenty of times. I can't see myself ever getting rid of this. Again, there are just plenty of times where just something random or weird will happen unforeseen, and boom, this saves me from dying. So I really like this one a lot. Swift Harvesting. So this isn't necessarily because we care about Siphon Blood damage, but this is giving us increased Siphon Blood attack speed, which is giving us both more healing and more blood Nova procs. It doesn't. I don't know why it seems so random sometimes. It is a 50% chance. Sometimes you'll sit here and it'll do just like nothing for a second at a time, and then sometimes you'll do it and it'll be like 3 or 4 going off at a time. And for whatever reason, it seems to be. Well, no, I know the reason. I was going to say for whatever reason it goes off a lot more in combat. The reason it goes off a lot more in combat is because of Pain Enhancer. Because if you're in a big group of enemies and they all have Pain Enhancer on it, you've got a lot more attack speed, so it's going to go off a lot more than just me sitting here. It doesn't look like anything particularly impressive while I'm just sitting here channeling it, but in practice, in actually using it in combat, you'll see it just go ba 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 ba, like not on a pretty frequent basis. It'll just blast like 3 times in a second. So that's why we're using Swift Harvesting. We're both getting more healing and we're getting more blood novas. Let's see, I think that's kind of it. That's the main gist of the build. I'm not going to go over stat priority. I have all the details of that in the Diablofans guide, and I'll have a link to that in the description, so you can check those out if you want to know what the stat priorities should be on these. As far as the gems, Pain Enhancer and Bane of the Trapped are required. You have to have both of these in here for this to really work. The third slot is kind of optional. Well, not optional. It's debatable what you should have in here. After a lot of testing, personally, I'm still sticking with Mirror. I'm finding that my clear speeds are still faster than anything else, even after the nerf. Overall, clear speed has been impacted, but it's still, in my experience, better with Mirror than anything else. After Mirror, the stuff that I would rank in order of best worst from left to right would be these. It would be Toxin, Wreath Lightning, Bane of the Powerful, Alteration, and then Gizzard. I'm not going to go into a whole lot into all of these, but these are basically, I'm putting Mirror first, and then everything else after that in this order. You can feel free to test them out. I've tested them out a lot, and I'm just telling you from my experience, I'm getting consistently better times with Mirror than with anything else. So that's why I'm going to keep using it. It's also a little source at this point, a little source of healing as well. It used to be a huge source of healing, but now it's not quite as good for that, but it's still something. So the other option here, if you want to do something a little bit different, is instead of Traveler's Walk, you can actually use Wisdom of Kalan and Convention of Elements. And when you do that, you can swap out in the cube. You can go from Aquila Curus to Corpse Whisper. And in this setup, and we actually need to change a few things. We change Overwhelming Essence to Dark Reaping and Siphon Blood to Drain Life. So in this setup, because we're no longer using Aquila, we no longer care about the fact about whether we're above 90% essence or not to get the mitigation. Kalan is giving us the same amount of mitigation by adding it in as we are getting by using Traveler's Walk and Aquila Curus. It's the same. It's either 2 pieces of 50% DR or 1 piece of 75% DR, which is what this setup is giving. So this gives us the benefit of being able to use Corpse Whisper Pauldrons, which is a huge boost to your Corpse Lance damage. With this setup, you're going to have slightly less generalized damage purely because Convention of Elements is cycling through elements rather than, just giving you a flat boost to everything to 100% like you're getting with Traveler's Walk. So your what I would call generalized damage is going to be a little bit less with this than with Traveler's Walk, but the benefit is you're getting way more Corpse Lance damage. You're getting 3 times the healing, and you're getting the exact same amount of damage reduction. And the reason for Siphon Blood, or for Drain Life, again, since we don't care about being above 90% anymore, then we can use Drain Life for triple the healing and Dark Reaping to make sure that we at least have enough to keep using Decrepify and Bone Armor. That's why you would swap that out, because otherwise you have no essence recovery. Without this, you have no essence recovery at all with Drain Life. So this setup here, Kalan, CoE, Dark Reaping, Drain Life, Corpse Whisper. Honestly, if you have all your stuff being well rolled, is going to be probably a better setup. Certainly for the purposes of actually pushing with this build, like pushing as high GR as you can go, this is what you would want to do. Unfortunately for me, I've yet to get a Kalan that's worth a shit. And unless you get one that's worth a shit, which the best you can hope for is Int Crit Socket, because it always rolls with attack speed, and even in an ideal scenario, the best you're going to be able to hope for is just re-rolling that attack speed to something else, to one of the 2 of those 3 things. Unless that happens, in my opinion, it's not worth it to do this. If once I get an Int Crit Socket Kalan, I could see myself switching to this setup. Again, it's the same amount of DR, triple the healing, and way more Corpse Lance damage. So it's honestly better. It's just the problem is that a good Kalan is really hard to get, and I have yet to get one out of the frickin' 20, including Reforges, that I've gotten. So unless you get a good one, I would recommend using Traveler's Walk, which for the time being is what I'm still using. So anyway, that's pretty much it. Hopefully, guys will enjoy it. I've enjoyed reading the comments on Reddit and elsewhere. A lot of people seem to be enjoying the build. I hope you guys do. If you have any questions, let me know, and let me know how this works out for you, or I'm open to suggestions or whatever. That's fine. So hopefully I did okay. This is my first build. I've got some more builds that I'm working on. I have a speed farm sort of variant of this that still needs some work, but I think it's pretty good. It's using Corpse Explosion instead of Corpse Lance. But that's probably what I'll be working on next. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know what you think. Have fun.